We are so blessed with the musicians that show up on Sunday mornings. They don't just show up. They share their gift, excuse me. Well, last Sunday, I was knee-deep in toys, coats, shoes, underwear, socks, everything you can think of. And for the last 11 years, part of our ministry, the Unity World Healing Center, and then when that closed, we also have a nonprofit that worked along with us that we started at the same time as the ministry, and they have carried forth Toy Day. This was Toy Day 2023. We work with the local school, the school that's closest to our site, Cedar Oak School, and we work with the counselor, and they vet 12 families from their school. We also work with Head Start from Clackamas County, and they vet 12 families. Now, some of these families have 8 children, and some of these have 4 or 5 or 2. And as throughout the years, when we started, we just did toys. And now, the requests, we've started asking pajamas. Does your child need pajamas? Every child needed pajamas. Does your child need a coat? Almost every child needed a coat. We were blessing 55 children with coats. And this year, what was different was shoes. Children outgrow shoes very quickly, and almost every child needed shoes. Now, we were very blessed. In our Cedar Oak School that we partner with, they have a clothing closet, and they get coats, brand new coats, from Columbia Sportswear. So we got gorgeous coats. One of my board members, I'm the executive director, one of my board members, her son is a big marketing man with Adidas shoes. We got free, gorgeous, beautiful Adidas shoes. And then we partnered with our local Allstate office, with a beauty shop, with the Montessori school. We had hundreds of toys. Every child gets 3 toys and all the clothing that they need. And it's a big project. I'm just saying, just sorting toys for 55 children. Whoa. Dolls, science kits, games, puzzles, art supplies, soccer nets, footballs. It went on and on. So I was thinking of you, and I was having the time of my life. So the families make an appointment. They come in, and we have a table filled with the things their children asked for specifically. We have interviewed them. So that little boy that wanted the volcano science kit got the volcano science kit. And the little boy that wanted the cars, Hot Wheels specifically, got Hot Wheels. And the little girl that wanted a baby doll got a baby. I'm just saying. I missed you, and I was having a good time. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today to start off. I promised you a story from James Dillet Freeman, Christmas story. I'm going to start a little differently than that. I'm going to do a little historical background on the Christmas story. So I'm going to ask you to put your seatbelt on and be prepared. Now, you may not have heard this, and you may have heard this many times. You may not agree with me, and that's good. I love it when people are thinking. I want you to do your own research, and if anything comes up for you that you would like to talk about or investigate more, we could always have a class or a short workshop on these ideas. What I wanted to share today is the real story, the real Christmas story. Now, we have our traditions. We love our music. We love our carols. We love our candle lighting. We love all the traditions. We love to read the scripture. Georgie's going to read next week at the Christmas Eve service from Luke, as you mentioned. And I am going to shake our ideas about the Christmas story. It was a huge surprise to me when someone shared with me an article about the universal story of Christmas. Now, the universal story of Christmas is about Historically, there were many similar stories to the story of Jesus. There was a similar story in Mexico, in Western Asia, where there were prophets or saviors, and the stories go that there were wise men or kings that came, never women, I'm sorry, wise men or kings that came and brought gifts. And that their story ended with the crucifixion as a resurrection. Now there's a similar story in Tibet, in Rome. There are many similar stories with spiritual teachers who were born of a virgin birth, were crucified and resurrected. You may have heard of Krishna, the Hindu spiritual teacher. 1200 BC, 1200 BC, Krishna was born in a cave of a virgin birth. 3 kings brought gifts, and he was crucified and resurrected. So you see, this is not a Christian story. When I was raised, I was told it was a Christian story. And when I began to realize, do research, do some background, and study with different people, I was amazed. And I realized, isn't this good? Because this means it's been on our planet forever. The story of a spiritual teacher bringing hope, bringing love, bringing wisdom. It was not, as I like to say, Jesus was not a one and only child. Jesus was part of something so much bigger than we have ever imagined. Now I want to share a little bit about the stories in the Bible. Matthew, Luke, and John, they were not written by a Matthew, Luke, or John. Those people had died, but those were names that they wanted to be remembered. They were actually, people were illiterate, and everything was by oral, being handed down by oral stories. So there was a limitation, but there was also a specific way that they told the story so you would remember it. The writings have been, and very few people could write at that time. Jesus was part of a rabbinical school. He was a rabbi. He had been taught. And he was part of a rabbinical school where many rabbis were teaching the same thing he was. He was not the only one. To me, that makes it such a big picture. It doesn't limit, it makes it bigger. Rabbis were teaching about love and forgiveness and ideas that we think are new. They are not new. They have made the path of time. They have crossed the path of time. So as we begin to understand that there were lots of changes made, names, places, dates. Jesus was not born in the winter, probably springtime, but they connected it to the winter because people celebrated for the solstice of light. So it seemed like good marketing. If you've already got people celebrating, let's do it at the same time. Now, I've had the opportunity to study and read over these years. And the Fillmores were very focused on the Bible is not literal. The Fillmores were very focused on that. And they studied with rabbis to create the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. They went into in-depth study to find out what all those names and places actually meant. So the names and places were chosen symbolically to remind us, to remember those points. Jesus was not born in Nazareth. there's several places he could have been born, but they're sure he wasn't born in Nazareth. Probably not as stable, probably not the same way. Now, I also wanted to share that George Lamza, who was our first real Bible teacher at Unity, was from the Middle East, spoke Aramaic, and wrote the Aramaic Bible. And many of us studied the Aramaic Bible. Now, some of the stories were similar, but they had a different meaning. They had a deep spiritual meaning. It wasn't about who did what. It was about the meaning of the actions. Are you with me? Yes. All right, good. And after George Lamza left, then Dr. Rocco Errico, who I've had the pleasure to meet and go to a retreat. All the unities in the Northwest came together. I bet even Reverend Patty was at that retreat at the coast years ago. And Rocco Errico told story after story, and people were just like, he was deflating so many stories that we thought were true. And he said, but this is the real story. And the spiritual principle under the story is what metaphysics and Charles and Myrtle Fillmore taught. So we're going to read the scripture Christmas Eve, and we're going to sing the traditional songs because we all love it and because it's part of our heritage. However, we want to remember that this is bigger than Christians or Christianity. Now, after that, when Paul and I were at the retreat, I met this young man. He was staying in the same hotel. His name was Hanny Freewatt. Still is Hanny Freewatt. And a wonderful guy. And we started talking. He started coming to Unity. And he was from Lebanon, was raised speaking Aramaic, had studied Bible in the Middle East, and had come to America. And we did many dialogues together. And we shared and taught classes together. The one thing that people always remember is when he talked about the virgin birth. The virgin birth is actually, in the Middle East, the firstborn child of a married woman. And his mother, had a virgin birth, and he was the result of the virgin birth. He was the firstborn. So, and he said, when we write stories, we enhance them. We love to enhance a good story. I love to add layers that may or may not have been actually happening. So as we look at the story, we look at this celebration, let us celebrate that we are a global message. We are part of a global message of love and kindness, hope and faith that has been thousands and thousands of years old. Many, many, many. I've just told you a few of the examples across the planet where this story was occurring. Go home and think. Go home and scratch your head. What do you really believe? So I'm going to close with my Christmas story by James Dillet Freeman. Now, I used to have a big red book. I think they still sell it. James Dillet Freeman's Christmas Stories. And when I retired, I got rid of dozens of bags of books. So, and this story, I don't remember where I read it. I think it was in one of the Advent booklets. James Dillet Freeman, the poet laureate of Unity, was married to a wonderful woman named Catherine. And he was writing for the school. She was involved in Unity, and they had a wonderful connection. They discovered that she had cancer. And he remembers the day, I've read what he was writing at that time. He remembers the day when the doctor came out and said to him, after a biopsy, "This is fatal. We can't do anything about it." Now, today, they probably could. But back then, and he remembers going into the chapel at Unity Village and praying. Are you there? And he wrote the poem, I Am There, that went to the moon, that has been on in movies, and has been used many ways. The story I'm going to tell you is one he wrote many years later after his wife had died. He said that first Christmas, after she had passed away, he could barely even go out of the house. He was so upset, devastated. And he woke up Christmas morning, didn't even want to get out of bed. And he just laid there and tossed and turned. Eventually, he got out of bed and just wandered around the home. He had promised a good friend that he would go to dinner at their house. They picked him up so they would make sure he came and brought him home. When he got home and they pulled in the driveway, there was a light in the house. I'm sure I turned off all the lights. How can there be a light in the house? Turned the key, walked into the house, and the living room was all lit up. And on the coffee table was 3 presents, gift wrapped. What is this? How did someone get in here? How did someone turn on the lights? Who are these from? And on the top was a note from Catherine. I knew today would be really hard for you. So I gave the neighbor a key, asked her to turn on the lights, and put these presents on the table. I didn't want you to think you were alone. He unwrapped, and she said, I've put in these boxes a warm sweater that I have held many times. So you will be wrapped in my arms. Another present is a book. It's brand new. He's a writer, remember. It's a brand new book, right off the press, to help you go to sleep. And the last present is a surprise. He opened the presents, put the sweater on, took the book to bed, read the book, and went to sleep. And he said, I knew I was not alone. We remember that we are never alone. And I asked you to start with that phrase, love never ends. Love never ends. We're going to have a remembrance service today and remembering this truth that love never ends. The truth is that we as Unity members, partners, co-creators, are part of a global movement that believes we are all connected at the heart. We are all connected at the heart. So I would like to go into meditation now. And I'm hoping you'll be able to come to the remembrance service. Either way or not, please hold that person in your heart today that came to mind. Maybe from your childhood, maybe a neighbor, a friend, a beloved. So I invite you, wiggle in that chair. You've been listening. Shrug the shoulders. Shake the hands. Let's breathe together first. I want you to remember were Catherine's words. You're never alone. And James Dillet Freeman's poem reminds us that the Spirit said to him, I am there. Whenever you seek me, whenever you turn within, I am here. In this very moment, in this very room. Love never ends. It only grows. And love is more than memories. It is the divine blessing of love, enhanced. And as we share that love with each other, it grows and grows and grows. We give great gratitude for this moment in time, where we got to experience, remember, feel touched by those who are no longer in physical bodies and yet present in our lives. In the name and through the power of all blessed beings, we say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Very slowly, opening your eyes. When you're ready, I call them cat eyes. Just kind of looking out, just slowly, effortlessly. Thank you, thank you.